triggering change one heartbeat at a time. Battle for Freedom. Hello everyone, I'm your host Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom on Mojo Fiverr Radio, and I appreciate every last one of you as we get into another broadcast of Mojo Fiverr Radio's one and only crazy program, Battle for Freedom with Watson Prunier. One of the many hosts available to you on this network, and if you want to learn a little bit more about us, just keep going to mojo50.com/Mojo Fiverr Radio. Click the schedule button and you can learn about the different shows that are available to you on this crazy and amazing network. Again, I appreciate you. My name is Watson Prunier from Battle for Freedom on Mojo Fiverr Radio. Listen, can't do this without covering some of our sponsors. One of them is American Pride Roasters Coffee, historically great coffee, and the official coffee of Mojo Fiverr Radio. Again, the reason why you're going to do this is because of the fact that we love American Pride Roasters Coffee. It's been our official coffee for eons, and we'll continue to love on them. And you just continue to pray that they will recover from the disaster that they faced earlier this year. And but they're rebuilding. They're just strong and a great spirit of creativity and so much more. I also want you to look into New Life Holistic, one of our other sponsors, and we really appreciate them. Take a listen to this, and we'll go from there in a second here. I don't know what you've been going through, but I'm certain that you're tired of the useless systems you've been wasting on money for therapy. Contact New Life Holistics by going to newlifeholistics.com right now. Give them the code MOJO50 and save $50 on your first session. Biofeedback may be the one solution that can help you. Try New Life Holistics today. New Life Holistic, let them know that Watson from Battle for Freedom sent you, and then we'll go from there and talk a little bit more on this. So yesterday I started something, and if you want to interact, you can go to facebook.com/Battle for Freedom. I see Jamie and Heidi and Philip, Robert, thank you for being part of the program and sharing. One of the things that I want to do today is, yesterday I started something where I was talking about the idea of non-conformative creativity, bringing back innovation. And, it was interesting because I wanted to reevaluate and reassess some of the different things I was saying yesterday during the broadcast. So I talked to one of my coworkers who's been in the industry that I've been in for a lot longer than I have, and actually working for my company a whole lot longer than I have. And so, so he has a great wealth of experience in reference of being in the private sector and understanding the mentality of jobs and everything like that. And so I was asking, so what do you think are the things that are killing creativity that needs to happen in many of these businesses that never get a chance to really be as best as they really could be? What is it that is really driving or making these companies fail to be who they really need to be? And one of the questions he said to me was, it was the idea that you actually have a lot of businesses, it's unrealistic project deadlines. And I was like, oh, that's a very interesting thing. I didn't even think about that. And sometimes I think that is the unrealistic project timeline because of poor planning on the individuals who create the project timeline, the business who creates the timeline? What are the things that causes these problems? Again, there's so much that as we look at just rebuilding, rebranding America, there's so much that we could look at to reevaluate why are we failing to succeed in the areas that we need to. I don't have the correct view for this, but this shirt says, United States of America. It's like, it's one of the 4th of July shirts that my wife picked up for me some time ago. It says established in 1776, but it was established a lot sooner than that. I mean, there were a lot of people who wanted to do this American experiment, and so they decided that they were going to come over here and try and make a difference and give people another opportunity. Well, I think that, as we sit here, they saw what was wrong in England, they saw what they didn't like, and they decided that they were going to come up with something different. And I think that this is exactly where we need to do is we need to reevaluate what we're seeing that we're not liking that's happening in America and come up with something different. One of the things that I've seen often is we spend a whole lot of time complaining about what's wrong and we never come up with a plan of what's right. Yes, do I like the idea of abortion? No. Well, what alternatives have we come up to present people who want to abort the children? Do I like, some of the different other things that take place and I'm just going to sit here and complain? Or am I going to provide a situation? Are we going to provide a situation that people can follow to come up with something different? And if we don't, then why are we complaining? It makes no sense for us. We complain about what the Democrats are doing, but we don't come up with a better solution. We complained about repealing Obamacare. We never repealed Obamacare. We never came up with a better solution. Hey, Lep, thank you for being part of the program. He's the other half of Ain't You a Peach. Lep and Jamie, you can catch them on the weekends on Mojo 50 Radio. So if I'm not saying what you need to hear, check them out on the weekend. Ain't You a Peach and Rock'em Sock'em. Linda, thank you for joining. Amy, thank you for being here. Yes, Amy, she basically talks about that adoption's there. Adoption is there, but see, here's the problem is oftentimes when we're sitting here screaming about people don't get abortions, everything, we have our loud, crazy signs and everything like that. We have never created an environment that speaks louder. It speaks louder than the environment. Oh yeah, there's crisis pregnancy center and so much. And sometimes I wonder, do we create the programs for the people? Do we create the programs that the people will need that can save a life or save a marriage and everything like that? And we create it because we're trying to bring numbers into our church, or do we create it because of the fact that the people need it? And if they join our church, praise God. If they don't, praise God. But it doesn't have to be at our church. We have to be a city on the hill, a light that doesn't need to be, snuffed out. We have to be able to create this light in the darkness that people can see, that it just shines bright. There's something unique about the light that shines in the darkness. Because in the midst, when everything is dark, everyone sees it and they're drawn to the light, like a moth to the flame. And I sit here, it's, we need to do this. It's not that we don't want them to come to church. It's not that we want them to be afraid of church. We need to do it. It makes me think, even this morning as I was thinking about this, and you had Christ, where, he didn't stand in front of the brothels. Jesus didn't stand in front of the brothels and preach the word of God. Jesus actually went out into the countryside and he basically preached and the people came to him. They knew what he was about and they decided to go to him. But there was something unique about Jesus that they decided that they were going to follow him and go after him and make their investment to follow and understand better who he was. They knew where he was coming from. Interesting. Even his haters, even the detractors, the Pharisees and the Sadducees, that they didn't like all the attention that this Jesus character was getting, they went out to see what this Jesus guy was talking about. The detractors of John the Baptist, they didn't like what he was doing. They knew what he was about. But the Pharisees and the Sadducees, they went out to what he was doing. Isn't that interesting? Is that in the midst, we know where the darkness is, you go to a place and you set yourself as a light that people go to. And I think that this is the reason why I believe that we have so much devastation in our country, in our world, is because we as a church, yesterday, Peter Seraphine, he's one of the other voices on Mojo 50 Radio. Peter Seraphine, I haven't had a chance to see the video yet, but last night on Thursday, I believe at 7 p.m., he had a pastor speaking about what is the church's role in America's decline. So Peter Seraphine, again, one of the hosts on Mojo 50 Radio, and I believe that I'm going to take a look at this. I'm really intrigued to see what he has to say. So, for me, this broadcast, like I said, I talked a little bit about him yesterday. Hey, Curtis, thank you for joining. Hello, Carolyn, thank you for joining. We need to be a light. And yesterday I was talking a little bit about this gentleman, Grant Petty from Blackmagic Design. Now I could trip and say like, oh my goodness, wow, I don't want anything with Blackmagic in here. And maybe I might find out that this guy is some kind of crazy witchcraft maker. I don't know. But he has a product that I've invested in for some time now. I've had one of his capture cards that I use as I'm doing my broadcasting and everything like that. And so what I want to do is I'm going to spend some time here talking and sharing with something he did. This Monday, he had an unveiling on basically the latest version of his program. And I want to share this with you as we go in. So work with me. Please be patient with me as I go into this here.
Anyway, so now let's talk about cloud workflows. Now, we've been working on this for a long time. However, I think it might be a good idea to explain our thinking on cloud workflows. There's really two issues we have to consider. One's technical, but the other one's actually Blackmagic culture. And culture is quite important. This is not just a technical problem. So how do we create a cloud workflow that still fits with our original culture? So we thought it'd be good to mention some of the culture rules we use that guide us. And the first...
I'm sorry, hold on one second here as I want to bring this back in a second here. There's something I want to try and get for you here as we sit there. So one of the things that they're doing, so I set the stage so you understand what's going on. Blackmagic Design has created, you're going to get more into the company and what it does in a minute here. But one of the things that Blackmagic Design has done is they have created this ability for you to have a program where it's media capture, broadcasting, filming, you name it. They have this wide, amazing product that allows people to film, create, and do so much more. And I love the program. I mean, like I said, I've been using this program for some time now as I have gone in and I do the video capture. Like as you're seeing me and you're watching me right now, is one of the things is going from the camera into a Blackmagic Design capture card, and then basically comes out and you see it here. So one of the things that they're offering is they made an announcement last week of Blackmagic Cloud. And you always have a bad feeling about the cloud because my experiences with the cloud has not been good. I shared some of it yesterday. I shared some of the bad experiences for other people. Thank you, Kathy and Debbie. Thank you for joining. And so as you sit here and you watch this, let's get back into Grant Petty and see what he has to say.
It's really probably related to subscription software licenses. If you have a TV subscription, you only really lose access to movies if you can't pay for it. However, in our industry, you're actually creating content, not consuming it, not just consuming it, So the work you create is in the software you use, and that could be years of work. So the problem with software subscriptions is if you lose your work if you can't pay, and you have to pay up every month even if you can't afford it. So what happens if you're out of work for a few months? There's really nothing you can do. You still have to pay. And if you don't pay, you lose your ability to work, But on some software, you could even lose years of work. So you kind of get punished the more you use the software. So why do vendors use subscription licenses? This is new, and it wasn't really like this in the past. And I think really to understand this change, you have to understand how tech companies are funded now. What venture capitalists really seem to care about now is subscriber counts. So if you want to invest, if you want investor money for a tech startup, then you have to comply with their business model. And what this really means is that they're really focused on a thing called customer lifetime value. And what they're investing in is companies that can lock in a customer. So a company's value is really calculated by estimating the profit expected from the customers over time. That's why so many technology companies have sky-high valuations. Even if the tech company doesn't make a profit, it's because the investors believe they're locking in customers for life. But the problem is customers hate it. You simply won't have a customer for life if the customers don't like how you treat them. But investors in technology companies don't really seem to notice that. I've noticed a lot of people seem to be investing in stuff they've got, technology got very little understanding of. So I think with DaVinci we have a better business model here. It's actually free.
Yeah, so now one of the things that I think is really powerful in this as you hear what he has to say is, that many of the companies, they punish you for investing in their product. I mean, seriously, think about this. How many conservative companies or businesses or entities decided that they were going to spend money in Google advertising, Facebook advertising, Twitter advertising, and everything like that. They invested serious money in there. When it came to the election times, you find out that even in Canada, where there were businesses, there were politicians who had a conservative leaning value, and they basically wanted to share the truth about what was going on and a lot of things that were being hidden. And they spent thousands and thousands of dollars to YouTube and these big tech companies, only to have their ads delayed until after the election. That's punishing the people. Now, mind you, I still say this, and I'll continue to say this, is that we've known this for so long, for conservatives, for people who are for freedom and everything like that. We knew that they've been censoring us for so long. We should have had programs and a platform not launching in 2020, not launching in 2016. We should have had platforms running as early as 2004. I'll tell you why 2004, because of the fact that when you sit here, I remember watching I'm not a fan of him anymore, but when I voted for George Bush in 2004, and I saw in the mainstream media how 98% of the ads being broadcast were negative and anti-George Bush. I was like, is this me? I mean, look, every channel I was looking at, it was negative George Bush. I was like, and Fox, unfortunately, went the other way where they leaned so far right that they said that they were fair and balanced. They finally took that out. But I was like, okay, so we've got to come up with something better than this. And I think as early as 2004, there should have been other platforms created, other designs created. But this idea that he says that, the tech companies turn around and they penalize you, or these businesses penalize you for using their program. That's exactly it. And this guy here, now he's talking about his cloud subscription. And what he does is like the DaVinci Resolve program that I use to create videos, transitions, and so much more. Like, what was it? Let's see. This right here where it says Battle4Freedom, triggering change. This animation was created inside of DaVinci Resolve. And then it basically fades out. And then you go right back to here. This animation that I use when I'm going to break. This is all created in DaVinci Resolve. So you look, and again, all free. You just have to download the program, teach yourself it, and figure out what's going on. But there was something about Mr. Petty, and as I was watching this thing, because I was learning a little bit more about him as I was getting deeper into this, and I was very blown away by this.
So it's easy to download and it's easy to learn how to use. Then over time, if you do well and start to make some money, perhaps you buy something from us. You might upgrade to a color panel or an audio console. For us to make money, we actually have to help you make money. We only do well if you do well. And
did you hear that? In order for us to make money, we have to make you money. In order for us to make money, you have to make money.
So engineers are really motivated to stay focused on what you need. So this means we can't design a cloud workflow that locks up your work. It would be against our culture. And there is another cultural rule. It's also very important to us. It's about tracking users and selling your data. As a secondary business, a lot of technology is now used to track customers. So the software you use actually creates profiles of your behavior. Now that information can be sold. So much of the tech industry nowadays is all about big data, and it's tracking your every move. Tracking every move you do has become extremely valuable. So Blackmagic Design will never do this. This means we can't design a cloud workflow that tracks and collects information on you. What you do should be private. This is extremely important to us. So just because so many tech companies do it doesn't make it right. So when designing a cloud workflow, we have to work with these cultural constraints because they're really important to us. It's a culture thing. So
the idea is, he says, you know what? We're not going to track your data. I mean, literally, the idea that we had to wait till Mac OS or iOS, 14 or 15, to force the apps on your phone and your devices to request permission to share your data. I mean, this has been going on for years, but they don't want to turn around and change what they're doing here. Robert says he sounds like a slip and fall lawyer. You don't pay if we don't win. I like like that. I like that. But I'm gonna tell you something. I don't fully understand everything about him, but he's an Aussie. He's from Australia, Blackmagic Design, and this is just very interesting. Again, I want to spend some time in here because there's something unique about this guy that is really, really sticking out to me here, and I think that we'll enjoy the. I think you're gonna enjoy what it is that he is sharing here, because I'm not gonna lie to you, it's downright brilliant what he's doing here. And this idea that, again, what scares me and what concerns me is that for so long, we have been buying the corporate models for so long that we don't know how to do different. And I'm encouraging us, just think about this. How do we do different so that we can better succeed without losing ourselves in the midst of this? Let's get into what he says here. This is from an interview I found called Conversation Bites, where he's being interviewed. Now, there's going to be some things he says I don't agree with, and we'll talk about that in a second. So let's look into this from Conversation Bites.
If you're in the film industry or TV industry, you definitely know about Blackmagic Design, but what about its founder and CEO, Grant Petty? Let's find out from the man himself. Grant joins us from his Melbourne headquarters.
From his Melbourne headquarters.
This has been going. Do you have to pinch yourself to realise how far you come where you are now?
Yeah, I think it is a bit of a shock. I think, like, it's funny, in some ways you're just so busy focused on things that don't work, you don't actually really focus on how big it could be. I mean, we haven't had any investment to grow this business, and so it's not like we've taken other people's money, we had to prove how big it was going to be. We just focused on what needed to be fixed in the TV industry, and eventually it just grew into this. And so you kind of look at it and you think, sometimes you're surprised that it's this big, but at the same time you sort of think, well, it's not like we had any plans for it not to be this big, or we didn't really know what it would be. But the thing that I think you do pinch yourself about is the people you get to work with. I mean, we've got a team of people here that are just like shockingly smart. And that's always like when you get into a product meeting and you're having a conversation about some complex problem, and just the way people think and being in that group of people is always a really, that's the thing that's most amazing.
So we'll get into how it started in a second here. So, I mean, again, this idea that we always focus on what's wrong and we never come up with the idea or the innovation to making something right or something better so that people can succeed and see people can win. So I think it's really powerful as we look and we watch how, I'm hoping that as I share this with you over the next 28, 30 plus minutes before we go to a break, that we figure out a way to learn from these exercises of identifying the issues that are wrong and coming up with a mentality of doing right and letting everyone succeed in it, not just ourselves, but everyone succeeding. I'm not promoting some crazy, everybody gets a trophy idea. No. People have to put in hard work to make this succeed. And I think if we could learn better from people who have done this correctly, I think we all can benefit. How did it start?
When we started building our first products, we were doing things to empower people in the TV industry. So we were going after people that weren't empowered. I mean, by the very nature of you trying to empower creativity, you're trying to go after the people that aren't currently empowered. So I'm trying to sell products to people that aren't actually in the TV industry, or then they're working for someone else who's in it. So the problem is you're actually going after a market that doesn't even exist. So everyone thinks you're nuts. And so it is kind of funny that you've got to use a worldwide market even more so because you've got such a tiny part of a market, because there's really no market yet. So you're looking for no market globally to be enough of a market to actually make it physically possible to do it, and then the market grows over time. So
I mean, this idea of, think about this. I like that Kathy says everyone has a part to play. Exactly. And I think that this is the problem, is that in our corporate model, whether it is capitalistic, communistic, socialistic, and everything like that, in every one of those models, we'll always find, because of the horrible condition of a human heart, personal greed, covetousness, lying, deceit, and so much more will play its role in people succeeding. So one of the things that we do is, we're going to a break. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a break for now. And I'm your host, Watson Prudy from Battle4Freedom. There's so much more we're going to cover on this. I appreciate you listening in. Let's go to a break, and I'll talk to you beautiful people on the flip side. John 3:16. For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish but have eternal life. Romans 10:14 through 17. How then will they call on him who they have not believed? And how are they to believe in him of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah says, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us? So faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. 2 Corinthians 5:17. Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, he is a new creation. The old has passed away. Behold, the new has come. I share these passages with you because of the fact that we know John 3:16. We probably barely hear Romans 10:14 through 17. And most doubtedly, we never hear 2 Corinthians 5:17. Life as a believer in Christ requires change. To make a decision for Christ, we recognize that there is something wrong in our lives and we need to do different. We need to be better, but we can't be better on our own strength. So we hear the gospel message, moved by the Spirit of God, and we respond. I ask you now, if you've heard the message, please respond and live for his glory. Hello, everyone. I'm your host, Watson Prunay from Battle4Freedom on Mojo 5 Radio, and I appreciate every last one of you as we get back into talking about the idea of why Blackmagic Design, Grant Petty business culture. I share this with you because of the fact that, again, one of the things that when you have an idea and you have a concept in your mind and you want to bring it to fruition, or sometimes you don't have the proper words to explain what's going on in your mind and what's going in your heart, and you start seeing people say or do exactly what you've been doing for so long that you haven't made it like a corporate model, or you haven't done an advertisement on what you're doing. And I think that there were some of the different things that Grant Petty was doing that I was like, oh my goodness, yes, that's it. That's it. This is the model that we should have. Take care, Linda, and be safe. You know, as we sit here and we watch this, I love what Grant Petty is doing, and I'm hoping, again, that this can inspire many of you, because I believe that God has gifted us all with specific talents. And it's not talents that we harbor for ourselves, but that, like, as you watch and you see what Grant Petty says, his goal is to create an environment where if you make money, we make money. Our business grows because your business grows. It's the idea that, again, yes, we can make a profit here, but you'll come back and want to invest in us more because of the fact that you like what it is that we're doing here. You like what it is that we're doing here. So let's get back and creativity. I've shared this all week. I'm working on my better presentation of this, but Romika Designs, ROMIKA DESIGNS, RomikaDesigns.com. You want to see creativity? You want to see just inspiration? I could spend all day watching the videos that they put out of the things that they're creating. It's inspiring. It inspires me. When sometimes there's maybe not even a direct contact on what it is that other people are doing, but you know what? I think that if we can get into the spirit of creativity, we can inspire other people to do the same, and we can inspire others to do likewise. The question is whether or not we want to humble ourselves to do so. And amen, Kathy. It is for God's glory. Psalms 19:1, the heavens declare the glory of God. And we should be about giving him glory in everything that we're saying we're doing. And if we're doing this right way, we're lifting up other people to do this and be part of this great experiment. and see so much happening. Let's get back into what he has to say.
There was always
The local or
a
global?
global perspective for two reasons. One, obviously, that I started thinking about the idea when I was living in Singapore, but secondly, I just couldn't invest to do a product like that without it being a global product. So, and I think that would be the thing that would be my advice to anyone. Just, the world is so interconnected. It's almost impossible to do anything local anymore.
So did you have to do this all on your own?
Yes, all on your own.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to get bank loans at various points for different bits of equipment because we actually have our own factory, so we had to buy our own SMT gear. There's huge investment in products, the components alone. You feel you're constantly struggling with cash flow because you've got to buy enough components because you're growing all the time, and we grow fairly strongly. So we've done it with no investment, no venture capital, no debt at all. I've got a little bit of overdraft at the moment, but that'll be gone soon.
I mean, you hear that? Is it sometimes... Maybe you may, and I think this is the one of the scares that a lot of us have, is that we don't want to venture out into anything if we don't have a gazillion dollars. Now, yes, I think there should be some kind of planning. I think there should be, there are things that I want to do. I want to roll out in 2023, 2024, but I'm budgeting to put money aside for some really big projects coming out in the next couple of years. So I just don't want to just throw everything out there right now without properly planning what I'm doing. I need to put the money aside, but it's not going to be money I'm getting from investors, but money that I'm making, I'm budgeting from some of my personal desires to be in a position that when I'm ready to roll this stuff out, there is no error, there is no consternation. I'm confident of what God's trying to do through me, and I'm going to push it out there with or without any support from external forces. I mean, I'm trusting God and grateful for my wife to support me in my endeavors as I try and support her in her endeavors, and pray that God get glorified in everything that I say and I do. And I just love this, that you have to understand this guy started this thing with no money.
We just, we've done it ourselves because that's given us creative freedom. The thing that struck me about the TV industry, the problem I had with the TV industry, the reason the product company was...
Now, hold on a second. As we get into, he said, creating it ourselves and not doing this ourselves and not depending on other individuals gave us the freedom and the latitude to be as creative as we want and not be constrained. And I think that, again, sometimes unrealistic project deadlines, unrealistic expectations and forecasts for profits on the immediate side rather than in a long-term investment can make us make unrealistic decisions or poor decisions in our business models, in our models to get out of debt and everything like that. Well, when there are no ties to anyone and it is just on us and hopefully better planning, we can see some success in here. But now he's going to get into this idea of why is it that he did this and what concerned him on this. And he's talking about the trends in TV as early as the late 1990s and early 2000s. This is very interesting.
Set up is because it was all very equipment centric. I mean, an editing system cost, a design system cost over $1 million. Editing cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. So we were trying to fix that. But to me, it meant the TV industry was very equipment focused. It was very, expensive, and it wasn't really a creative industry. It was more an equipment hire business. We hired that equipment by the hour. So.
And think about that too, because even in current day models, you see a lot of things. It's about renting this stuff. That the stuff is so expensive that you can't afford to use it. I want to be able to do this and figure out a way. How do I incorporate some of the less expensive things that I have and still put out great quality? There are a lot of new Bang Whiz toys that's out there that I'd love to have right now that are $17,000. Or would I love a red camera? Or, oh yeah, most definitely. Do I have a budget for a red camera? Absolutely not. I don't have $1 million coming in, in revenue from my endeavors. Although I'm still, Mojo Fiverr Radio, I'm just waiting for them to write me that $1 million check that I'll wait, 100 years to cash. But I'm sure that when they write me that check, I'll be happy for it. because they've been paying me hundreds of thousands of dollars so far. Every other show, they're making their money as well too, hand over fist. That's the reason why they ask for the donations, because they want to cover the checks that they've been writing to us so that they can stay online. So if you can, go to mojo50.com/donate and give. Help them, help me. Just having so much fun. I'm probably going to get a call from HR shortly, but we'll see what happens.
I thought there was huge problems in the way the TV industry was, but then I've realized as I've grown, the business community also has the same problem. Business doesn't really handle creativity very well, so it's actually a very wide problem. And so it's been interesting as we've grown to sort of realize that the problem, you're almost kicking the problem down the road and realizing that the problem's bigger than you expected. It wasn't just a TV industry thing.
Yes, so
we do our products, we're supporting a creative community, so it's a very similar thing. Now's our time, to give, things for other people to bring them up, and that's the most exciting thing when you see like I was in a high school the other day and I was checking out their media area, and there was a girl doing color grading on DaVinci. She just downloaded, DaVinci's free, but it's the same tool that Hollywood use. So and she was doing a nice grade actually, looked quite good. Now she's doing that and she's discovering that herself. Now she could work in Hollywood, in 6 months if she was doing good work, because that's all that matters now. So, our DaVinci Resolve software, which does color grading and editing and everything, you just download that for free. That's now us doing the same thing that other people did for us when I was a kid. So you don't forget where you come from, but you reinvent the same kind of thing and you try to keep it going, because I did amazing things with that, and I've seen other kids do amazing things with coming from those humble backgrounds. In fact, I almost think you'd need it. I mean, you need the failure all around you to understand what success could, like what you need to do. Like, you can create your way out of poverty.
Now, escaping poverty. Before we get into that, I mean, think about this. He created a program that is in schools and kids. I don't know if you understand. Blackmagic Design's DaVinci Resolve is a free program that you could download right now. Okay, it's a free program. There's a $300 version that gives you a little bit more access to your hardware and several more effects, but if you've spent the $600 to $1,200 a year on an Adobe subscription for Premiere Pro, After Effects, and Adobe Audition, these are all the different things that I use because of the fact that on my work computer, because my work provides this for me. But on my personal computer, my home computer, I'm using Blackmagic Design to do all my video editing for my projects. And it's free. I'm going to upgrade to the studio version because I want to take advantage of, I've got the hardware to basically really take full advantage of everything it's doing. And I'm looking forward to doing that. But he created a program. I like it. And I think that that's some of the different ways that we, if we figure out a way to not immediately look for the first dollar, but figure out a way that we could make ourselves available, that people can see us and be intrigued by us and want to invest in us. It's a different from the corporate model right now that is so heavy laden on profits, high profits, and there is no relational collateral between us and our customers and end users. And I think that that's one of the things that's been missing or stripped out of the heavy laden profit first mentality. I always believe in making a profit, but sometimes that profit margin removes the relational and personal relational margin. And I think it's something that we need to consider. But he says escaping poverty. I thought this was an interesting part.
So if you think about it, Australia's a property-based economy, which means that everything becomes very rigid. I think it explains the tall poppy syndrome. I think it explains sort of this bit of an aggression here. It also explains why Melbourne Airport's so crap, because all they care about is extracting every cent they can from the asset, and so what you find is that everything's very rigid. If you in a property-based economy, it's left and right in politics, fighting each other, all this sort of stuff. You have to fight to move your way up a hierarchy, and if in a property-based economy, that's what really a good example of that is. What's the Australian dream?
Now, before we get into this, what he talks about the difference between the Australian dream, and did you hear how he talks about left and right, and you got to fight your way up to the top? And you know this, climbing that corporate ladder. That means you have to step on someone else's hands in order to get higher than them. Sometimes you have to kick them off the ladder. And we see this in every industry out there, even in the radio industry. There will be people who are willing to kick you off the ladder, even though they got onto the ladder by you reaching your hand down and pulling them up onto the ladder, because they have to get to the top. It's a single lane ladder rather than wide steps that we all ascend and all succeed. That maybe I might not move at the same pace as you, but I don't have to worry about you knocking me off the stairs. We all have room to climb the stairs and get to the top. Some of us may move at a faster pace. Maybe we have an extra energy or capital to move faster than the other people, but we're not sitting and turning back and drop kicking people to fall back down the stairs. Not like that situation in New York with the woman getting killed. But I think that that's what we see that's happening in corporate America and in every phase of business in America, and it needs to change.
Australian dream is buying your own house, property. What's the American dream? The American dream is lifting yourself out of poverty and changing the world. It's an IP-based dream. So it shows you the differences in the two different worlds, which is why I think that when people go to the US, they get a bit intoxicated by that thinking. You know, there's a very almost extended adolescent style of childlike imagination that goes on in the US where you can just invent anything. Here it's a bit more serious. And so I think the thing that's really exciting is by having that support under you, like the education system, the TAFE system, things like that. Even the Apple II computer that was in the school that I discovered when I was in high school, and I started programming that, and immediately your mind leaves and your mind goes where it needs to go. Without creativity, there's no way of honestly pulling yourself out of poverty. I mean, you can do things and make things and create things, and suddenly you look back and go, wow, like I think we're within the 1,000th biggest companies in Australia with no investment, no money put in. I mean, the shareholders put no money into the business to do that. So I think that demonstrates that you need the support of the community and the education and all that, but at the same time, it's up to us to do something exciting with it. And I think that that's what creativity does, and that's why it's nice for us to be able to transfer that to our customers. I mean, how amazing to have customers that are also creative and doing creative things with your products.
Yes, and so, you know, Robert says there's always going to be backstabbing in business because there has to be someone in charge and responsible. Yes and no. Because, again, I think a lot of the American corporate model and the corporate model in a lot of businesses, the people in charge are not always responsible. The people in charge are not always responsible. There's sometimes some really poor decisions because the people in charge are constantly following what everybody else is doing. And I don't think that that is always the best plan. Just because they're doing it doesn't mean that you have to. Just because people are farming out their businesses doesn't mean that you have to. Just because of the fact that people are making they're faking profit margins by firing dedicated employees and bringing in contractors so they don't have to pay for the benefits. They don't have to pay for the personal investment in the people who have literally sacrificed their lives to be part of this, their lives, their family, their well-being. They could have gone to other different things, but they were choosing to be loyal. They were choosing to be loyal to companies only to be part of the workforce reduction process. I mean, this was something huge between the late 90s and the late 2000s. RIF. Workforce reduction, workforce in reduction, or whatever it was. Reduction in workforce. That's what it was. But you sit here and you watch this aspect, and I don't believe that it's responsible to continue to model or follow the models that have been presented by society. Because lives have been devastated by this. Why does he do this?
Is that why you're in the business? I mean, is that why you're doing what you do? Because you're helping people make money out of your products. I mean, you're on record for saying that, aren't you? So yeah, that's what it's all about, and they can make money from your products.
That's true. I think that is the nice thing. I mean, look, I think that most customers, if you don't love your customers and be shocked by them, and even guys, I ride my bike past a concrete business, right? People make buildings out of that stuff. I mean, those trucks go off and they make buildings. I mean, that's pretty cool. I think you can be really excited by your customers, But from our point of view, our customers are creative. I mean, they're creating things with our products. So to us, that's a fantastic thing to be involved in. I mean, look at all the feature films. You know, I think Da Vinci's on at least 80% of the Hollywood feature films. That's pretty amazing.
80% of Hollywood feature films, with creating a product that no one would think of using. I'm going to fast forward ahead because the product is affordable. It's very, very affordable when you work with this tool. Like I said, free. And if you want the full-blown version, it's $300. And you get so much more of what you can do with this tool. I want to zip ahead because there's some other things that he talks about that I think is very, very powerful. I put this in good chapters here. Apple business. He talks about working with, let's go into this one here for a second because I don't fully agree with what he says here. Let's go into this one here.
Can I ask you about your relationship with Apple? I think anyone who uses Blackmagic gear uses a lot of Apple gear. It seems like a match made in heaven. So when you look at their creative genius at the start, or their leader in Steve Jobs, and I see you as a bit of a Steve Jobs figure yourself in what you're doing with Blackmagic Design, I feel like there's a great synergy between the two companies. What can you tell us about that relationship with Apple?
Well, I started building products right at the point where Apple was at their lowest in the late 90s, and everyone said I was crazy. But I knew that creative customers, my friends, used Macs as a platform. The thing that I think creative customers love about the Mac platform is it's just that I think, like, if you're going to say the difference between developing a product on a Mac and, say, developing on a PC, if you develop a product on Windows, it tends to be every feature you can find that you think you need, you throw it in there and you ask the question, you're putting up dialog boxes and all kinds of stuff all the time in a million settings, because you're not quite sure what the customer needs, but you're just assembling every feature that you think they could need and you're putting it in there. So it's like a toolbox of capability. But on the Mac platform, it's a little bit different. You tend to really have to deeply think through what the customer's going to be doing, because you then focus the product up a bit more to do that, and you try not to disturb them with dialog boxes and too many settings and things like that. You try to make the software a little bit more intelligent, because you know that they don't want to know about the complexity. You know, they want just a simple environment that they can do their work on. Their work's what really matters, you know. And so there is cultural differences between the platforms, and we're probably culturally aligned much more to the Mac platform. We work closely with Apple on a bunch of products, and so I think our cultures are somewhat aligned. But, you know, I learned...
So this is where, and thank you, Robert. Robert, he says, I meant responsible in a law/order type of way, not the leaders of businesses are responsible stewards of the company. Amen. Thank you for sharing that. This is one of the areas where I kind of struggle, because I think that there is, let's get it straight. I noticed this even in the beginning when Apple iPhones came out. There's a hoity-toity mentality in being an Apple owner. Not everybody. I think that there are some very humble people who have Apple products. They have an Apple iPhone, they have an Apple iPad, they have an Apple MacBook Pro, and maybe even a tower or earbuds or whatever. But there is this culture that does come with Apple. There is this. I don't think I'm better than a person who has an Android phone. I mean, I've gotten used to using the tool, but I kind of disagree in this area, because there is this assumption that only creative people are using, or the majority of creative people are in Apple. Are there a wide variety of options that you can use in Windows machines? Oh, most definitely. More stuff. And maybe I think that's the problem, because I don't think because this is where I think there's a contradiction in what he's saying. Because if there truly was the freedom to create, Apple is basically putting you in a box of what to create, because we think you should think this way. We don't think you should have all these extra options. Whereas I believe that true creativity is seeing all the different options that you want. And sometimes, as the person who's creating the product, sometimes the owner or the designer or the one who's the client may not fully understand all the different options that are available to them. And so if you're functioning, again, I look at the idea and the mentality of Apple as in the iPhone, as in Facebook. This is the structure and the confines by which you can operate in, and don't go outside of it. This is the mentality. This is the direction that you'd answer. Now, you do need some semblance of order. You do need some chiefs to wrangle the Indians and move in form. But then there are sometimes when you're running wild and you're running crazy, you stumble into some things. something positive, something negative. But Apple being the only conveyors of creativity, I'm kind of going to call wrong on that one. Again, like I said, there's a lot that he says that I appreciate and that he does. I think there needs to be some area and time for just creativity. But we can't claim to be the only people who have that creative. There's only one person who can have the moniker of being the author of creativity, and that's God. He started it all, period. And none of us will rise to that level of creativity. He takes the ownership on that one. But I like this, the room for creativity. Take this.
So you can just focus on your creativity instead, and you just move up in product lines if you find you've got some limitation that could be because you're getting big and you're actually making money. Like I joke and say that our goal is to trick our customers into being financially successful. Because if we can give them a consumer type product and they use it and realize what they can do with it, they don't even realize what they're learning. And then suddenly one day they're making money and they're going, hey, it's working. And they come back and buy something else, hopefully, and that's where we can, keep making more business and we can keep a relationship going with them. So,
yes.
So I guess you're not a fan of subscription services?
This is big.
Things like Adobe and Microsoft are doing? What about that? I guess you're not really a fan of it.
Well, look, I think there's a role for it. I definitely think there's a role for when you've got really low volume, extremely complex software. Like we've got software that does circuit boards. We've got literally software that simulates a circuit board trace at high frequencies and the data rates and stuff these days. I mean, that's not a wide software, and so it doesn't have a big market. So those guys have to, sometimes that's software's like hundreds of thousands of dollars to buy it. You could definitely see a subscription model working on that because you just basically rent it per month. It's still going to be a lot of money. It's going to be thousands, but you get a chance to get access to that high technology and do some jobs on it and things like that. So I think there is a role for it. For us, I think the problem particularly with creative people, is that I feel the cloud software, there's two problems with it. One problem is that if your customers are loyal and they use your software a lot, you're actually trapping them. You're not rewarding them for that. You're actually trapping them. So their own loyalty is actually being used against them.
And that's right there. Why you turn around because I agree that there are some areas where subscription does help. I mean, we have some programs that we use at our job that are ridiculously expensive, but what it does, oh my goodness. Oh, some of these programs, I mean, I'm mind blown on the level of intelligence built into these programs. But then he gets to the idea and this concept but some subscription models, you're penalizing people who've been faithful and using your product. I mean, the best advertisement you're going to get from your product are people who are enjoying working with it. So penalizing them for using it doesn't sound like a smart business model.
Because all their work is jammed in that cloud software. I mean, everyone knows you might have an old 10 or 20-year-old computer that you can pull off an old version of software with an old job on it and pick up some of your old legacy work. I mean, people can often work for 10 or 20 years or more on various kinds of work. It could even just be documents. If you can't open those on an old computer with the old software, you've lost that. Well, what happens to cloud software once, some of at what point do you lose all your old work? So there's that issue. But secondly, I think there's more of a business issue. What they've actually done is turn software into property. So it's not an IP business anymore. They've turned it into a sort of a property-based business. Because if you don't have to do exciting new features to get the upgrade anymore because the customers are kind of just locked in.
Bingo, right there. And again, which is one where I am stuck with trying to understand the love it's a business relationship he has with Apple, but in terms of the EULA agreements, the end user license agreements that you read when you download programs or you install everything like that. You have it in Microsoft, you have it in Apple, you have it in all these other different things. Where again, I mean, there are some performance and great upgrades between my iPhone 13 and my iPhone 8. Oh, most definitely. There are definite improvements on here. But the problem that you run into with this here is the idea that, oh, look at this whiz-bang thing from the iPhone. You could do that 10 years ago. Oh, look at this whiz-bang thing that we're doing with this program. But that's pretty much you just rebranding a feature that was already there. And what happens is in the midst of doing this, it's sad. It's sad. It's sad that, it's like you really didn't create anything new here. You just repackaged it. You rebranded it. And people, you know, so some people who actually do. There's sick people, Robert, who actually do read the EULA, the whole thing. Not me. But you know, when you sit here and you look at this, I wait 5 years before I buy a new iPhone. If my 8 wasn't giving me as much trouble as it did, I would not have bought the 13. But I think it's very interesting. I think I'll see if I can find the link for this. But if you look into what is it? This story of what Grant has done, Conversation Bites. Look up Grant Petty and Conversation Bites. You can't go wrong. But you could go even wronger if you don't listen to Brad Staggs and Daily Mojo, which is up next. I'm your host, Lots of Premier from Battle4Freedom. Take care. God bless. I'm out.
This is the seditious, rabble-rousing